Oh hey, I'm glad you're here. If you've been following along, then you've heard me say no more bonus episodes and that this episode would be our regular format. Well, to quote John Matrix in Commando, I lied. Every episode of VHS is a celebration of a film in a person's career or life path. Each starts with an idea, which I will chase until we end up with the episode. This episode shares that. I am really lucky to have a wonderful better half who will sit through most things. I mean, before movies, she'd hold my hand while I cried at placebo concerts. Now, she can just check emails while I watch Sharkskin Man and Peach Hip Girl or Freeway 2 Diary of a Trick Baby. But of all of you cinema fans, do you have that same interest or support? What is watching 31 horror movies in 31 days like for those kind souls? So that was the seed for this episode. Also of note, I don't talk a lot in episodes about personal taste, or I try not to. It's not interesting to me. I don't want to dissuade people from seeing films. I don't read people's 3-star reviews of whatever. I watch the movie and I see if it says something for me. However, in this episode, we do talk about personal tastes and the endings of some of these films, so while I heavily dislike the word spoiler, because we're all adults here, but since some of the films are new, if we say skip ahead, and you don't want to know, then please skip ahead. As always, I encourage everyone, to watch movies despite what anyone says about it, and support physical media. Please shop Diabolic DVD, Vinegar Syndrome, Arrow Video, Vestron, Grindhouse, Blue Underground, Code Red, Shout Factory, and the like. And that's it. So JL, please kick out the jams because the 40 films are the topic. The guest is our first return guest, and this is VH Us. Hello, and welcome to VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession portrayed in the film, except when we're on break. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and for this episode, it's a recap of the 31 and 31, and my guest is a business owner, cookbook author, recipe developer, sponsor of the podcast, and my wife, Sarah Marshall. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, in addition to all of those things, you are also doing cooking demos on Instagram Live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. Everybody can watch along and learn how to cook things from the farmer's market.
And you kind of focus on a seasonal ingredient, but you also often use your spicy sauces. Is that?
Yes, I use our sauces and just try to teach people how to do something quick and easy with ingredients from the farmer's market.
Awesome. And the idea for this episode came about because about 3 or 4 years ago, you decided to join me in the 31 and 31, which for anyone not knowing what that is, not listening, that's 31 horror movies in 31 days. A lot of people do that in October. Your decision to join means a lot to me because movies and discoveries and sharing those movies with people is something that I'm very passionate about. So to have you join in is really wonderful. But that being said, not everything is going to be for everybody. And that kind of was the inspiration for this episode. So people, please feel free to reach out and share your stories with us at vhspodcast@gmail.com. That's vhuspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Just taking an awkward pause. But we have a question that I would like to ask for you. It's actually for you, so that's why I'm asking you. It comes from a person named Hasservision on Instagram.
Hasser!
He wonders, will there ever be a spicy witch's brew sauce?
I don't think so,
No.
but I like the idea. We don't really do any holiday themed sauces, but if we did, a witch's brew sauce sounds pretty good. I have made a witch's tea.
That's right.
With one of your past guests.
Magic with a K.
Yeah, Magic with a K. We had some farm ladies grow all of the ingredients for it, and we made this special tea with all these beautiful, wonderful ingredients, and we used these peppers called witch's stick peppers. So that would be the closest thing that I have done to a witchy sauce, but it was a tea.
Yes. Excellent. We are VHS_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and you are Spicy Marshall?
Spicy Marshall on Instagram and on Twitter.
Awesome. Fantastic. So for the 31 and 31, I themed the days of the week for the month and forced myself to plug movies into those themes. This year's themes, starting with Monday, we have Mini Murderous Mondays, so all murderous small things. NOSFERATUESDAYS, which is obviously vampires. Witchy Wednesdays, which is a classic. I don't think it's ever changed since I started doing them when you were participating. CREATHURDAY, which is creature features. WTF-RIDAYS, SLasherday, and PosseSUNDAYS.
Well, I think I have to say that that's my favorite part about this month of movies. I mean, when you do the 31 and 31, because you come up with these really interesting days and then try to, find movies that fit into it. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Creatures Day. Is,
but I like it. I like your creativity. I like to go on this journey with you every month. So it's very fun. And sometimes I'm just like, Dirk, what are you having me watch?
Sure,
which is also part of it.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. Yes, I will say I try to sprinkle things I know you'll enjoy throughout the weeks. That being said, this year I might have gone a little too heavy in the beginning of the month with some sort of Z-grade, low-grade stuff that I'd put myself into a hole. So I had to rearrange some things, and we'll get to all of that.
You had to dig us out of it.
For sure. We kicked all this off with the midnight premiere of Scare Me, directed by Josh Rubin, another guest of the podcast, which debuted on Shudder. We watched it at October 1st at 12 o'clock a.m. And I also closed the month out by revisiting it at 11:30 on Halloween, and it still holds up. For the sake of this conversation, we'll break the films up by their day, starting with PosseSUNDAYS. Obviously, these are films that deal with possession in one way or another. The first film was Nightmare Sisters from 1988. Not your favorite, I think we could say.
Well, yeah, so I loved the Possession Days.
Yes.
In general. You went very hard on like an 80s theme with those ones. And I just wanted to say about possession movies, I kind of like them because it sort of opens the door to anything. So once you're okay with possession, anything can be in it. There can be magic, there can be demons, there can be whatever. Mm-hmm. So I like that. However, the very first one, it was the kickoff to our month, and I just thought, this is the worst acting I've seen. It was like the perfect example of too much setup. Like, they wanted you to understand that these characters were kind of these nerdy women that people didn't like.
Yep.
And you could have done that in 5 minutes, but it was like 40 minutes of me just looking at you and being like, seriously? This is still happening?
Yeah, and other than Linnea Quigley being in this film, and people would know her from Silent Night, Deadly Night, Fatal Games, Graduation Day, Return of the Living Dead, of course, Creepazoids, Sorority Babes of the Slime Bolorama, Witchtrap, which we talk about, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. Many of these were all things I watched in my dad's video store, and she's pretty much naked, I think, in most of them. That was kind of her calling card, if you will.
Sure.
And there is a lot of that in Nightmare Sisters.
There is.
And the premise of the film really, I mean, it's a huge oversell. Like, it's like, there's these nerds, and then a demon comes out, and then they turn into, like, sexy women, and it's like...
And then they're demons.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, some of that, it's a lot to get through. And it's also interesting to note, this film was the first time you let me know that in 80s films, women wash their breasts far longer than normal women do.
Yeah, I was going to say this movie is very good for some people. It's good for people who love boob washing.
Yes, lots.
And people who love Twister.
That's true.
That, if those are your things, watch the movie.
There you go. Moving right along, Mausoleum from 1983. I think of the group, I don't know, there's a lot of good ones in here, but I really liked Mausoleum. I thought there was some really interesting, like, laser eye stuff going on in this movie.
Yes. What do they call that? Where they like stop? There's got to be a movie term for it. Where it's a freeze frame of the person, and then just the eyes glowing, and then the sound. It's like this intensity that only happened in those kind of like 80s movies. Yeah. Is there a term for it when it does that?
Eye flare.
Yeah, because it's like it's not like stop motion, but it's like stop unmotion.
Yeah, they like stop unmotion. motion. They freeze the frame and then they make the eyes glow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, lasers, and usually an explosion happens or something to that.
Yeah.
That
Well,
effect.
I liked that, but I liked a lot of things about this movie. And one of them is that I think it was kind of tackling a bigger issue of, you know, because it's kind of like this possession is passed down through her family. So she like
Yeah.
inherited this possession from her mother. So it's
Which
kind of like
I've never
tackling
seen that before.
mental health, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's this other part that I really liked in the movie where I kind of feel like it could be a quote for leaving an abusive partner, but it's where the maid says to her, because she's doing all these terrible things and she's horrible to be around.
She's a great maid.
Yeah, and well, the maid isn't doing the terrible things, but the woman is to the maid, and so she says, "No more grieving, I'm leaving."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I really like that
true.
because I was like, that should be the walkout quote of like every woman in a terrible relationship,
Yes.
just being like, "You're treating me bad, I'm out of here." Like
Mhm.
that's it. So I really liked. There was a lot of things about the movie that I liked.
Yeah, there's some good kills. There's some great what is happening. A lot of beautiful walking through cemetery tracking shots.
Yeah.
It's really well lit. It's out now on video. Vinegar Syndrome, and it's a beautiful transfer, so it's a great way to see the film. It's got an amazing cover, and that's what always attracted me to the film, but it didn't look great in the VHS days, and now it does. So
Is Vinegar Syndrome like a movie ordering site?
yeah,
or
they're like a
something?
label, and so they acquire films and restore them. They did Nightmare Sisters, I think, as well. So it's, they're kind of all over the board.
Yeah.
But it's great for these small films that have been trapped in VHS.
So you can just see them in better quality.
Yeah, in the way they were probably intended, or even better. And they
Yeah.
often have interviews and great bonus features as well. So
Cool.
yeah. And then next we have Amityville-It's About Time from 1992.
Love the punny name.
which is great. It's about a possessed clock
Mhm.
from the Amityville house, and a family acquires it.
Yeah, I liked things about this movie. I didn't like some things about it.
What?
But I like the idea of, I don't know, is there a clock horror, like, genre?
Oh, gosh.
'Cause it feels like there could be. Clocks are really interesting because they mess with everything, because they mess with time. And so
Right.
it's like, and it's just this, it really is this object. But in this one, this object creates this other world, but then it also just messes with people's tracking and
Yes.
timeliness. So I had fun with this one. But what I really thought was that if I were to be pitching a Netflix series, I would pitch that they continue with the Amityville possessed objects thing, and you could just like live in that world where all the different things are possessed, but you see them kind of play out. Like it could be a bassinet, or like there could just be so many crazy things that would
Yeah.
happen in other people's homes.
Yeah, I think there is another Amityville film that follows this idea of like parts leaving the house and possession spreading. I really like this movie. I think Tony Randall directed it. That also I think did Hellraiser 2. There's a lot of gooey, cool creature stuff that happens in the film, and then he plays a little bit with time, like you said, people going into rooms and being like, "You've been gone for like 5
Yeah.
hours," and they're like, "What?"
You just walked the refrigerator. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
been
yeah.
all day.
So there's interesting stuff in this film. I totally recommend people picking it up. I haven't seen the new transfer, but the DVD looks fine. It looks great. And then last we have Fear No Evil from '81. Did you remember watching this one?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was like your typical possession priest movie.
Yeah,
like
not your thing. 'Cause
not my
it
thing.
Some of it takes place in the past.
Yeah.
And this film's weird because the director Frank Lagolia directed also Wizard of Speed and Time and Lady in White. Lady in White's great. But this film is like feels like a hodgepodge of an art house film, and then the high school stuff feels really strange, kind of cobbled together. But it's basically someone chasing, like the priest chasing Satan through time.
Yeah.
And then there's also they're being reborn in people. So there's lots of great ideas, and I think it's fascinating to watch it all play out, but I could see people not responding to it greatly. The devil stuff is kind of interesting, but like you said, my favorite possession stuff isn't necessarily the devil. I like almost like when people are possessing people, like body swapping and that kind of stuff, I think is really interesting. So our honorable mention is the movie Possessor, which just came out 2020, directed by Brandon Cronenberg, David Cronenberg's son. We just watched this the other night. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess if people are into Cronenberg style movies and things, I think it's a really good one to watch. But I also think there's a lot of people that would have a serious aversion to,
Yes.
to them. So if you're into it, you should watch it. I mean, I think I'm into it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it was something new that we hadn't seen. But, body horror is a tough thing for a lot of people. So I think if you can handle it, watch it.
Yeah. There's definitely some sweating that happened
Yeah,
in our house.
I right away was like, I can only kind of handle it.
And there was at least 2 points where I either said no and swatted at the air, which I'm not even sure what I was accomplishing with that.
Yeah.
Or oh my, I can't remember what came out of my face. But, anytime a movie does that or is showing me something that I almost can't see, then I'm celebrating that. I'm like, well done executing that sequence.
Yeah.
So check that out if you're not totally afraid. Just be warned, it is pretty violent. Which takes us to something cuter, Mini Murderous Mondays.
Yeah, good. This was a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, just in practice, all of the mini horror movies are, I mean, they're more fun, than they are scary. And so I appreciated that, especially coming after Possession, where it's more, Possession movies are kind of intense.
Yeah.
Mini murderous movies, not intense.
Yeah, I think last year I had SLasherday, which is Saturday. It's pretty standard because there's so many slashers that you can choose from. And then Sunday was spelled it's spelled the same, Sunday, but it was about murderous children.
Oh yeah,
and
like Son, S-O-N.
Yeah, a little heavy. So
to go from slashers to murdering
murder,
children.
Yeah,
totally.
Bit much. So this started off with Hobgoblins from 1988. Which I remember having hobgoblins. But there's not a lot of hobgoblins in this movie.
No, I can't even really...
Yeah, we watched this at the cabin and we just kept saying to each other, it's called Hobgoblins.
Yeah.
Like, Ghoulies gives you Ghoulies, but Hobgoblins really, for small completionists, people that want to... follow things that were inspired by Gremlins and watch it, but
I mean, I think it's, if you're into stuff like that, small creatures, when you do see the creatures, I think it's worth watching. It's fun. It's funny. I mean, I remember laughing when I saw them, so
yeah, they have a sense of humor to them. Then Dolls from 1987, directed by Stuart Gordon, who did, of course, Reanimator, Robot Jox, and From Beyond. We've seen this before.
Well, you said that I have seen it before, but I didn't remember seeing it.
Oh, okay.
I remember the cover in the video store.
Yeah.
I remember that being something that was very prominent because it's pretty creepy cover. The doll with the eyeballs out of her head.
I love that cover.
But this movie kind of has everything that you want in a good horror movie. It has the tiny creepy dolls. The kid's kind of tiny and creepy. Yeah. You have creepy old people. You have a creepy house.
Yep.
You have some 80s babes. It's like got it all.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, this for me is, it won't make sense to the younger generations, but those that had friends with Cinemax or Showtime or HBO, there's movies that would be on late at night, and you come across them, and this has that cozy feel of like Creep Show or Tales from the Dark Side or something, where it's like, it's spooky, you're not scared, but it's fascinating to watch, and all of the doll stop animation stuff's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really good.
Guy Rolfe is the old toy maker, and he was a leading man in Britain, and then later in his career more of a character actor, and after this he was in the Puppet Master movies. Has to be an homage to his Dolls role. I love him. He's so good.
Yeah, so good.
He's so good. So is the lady, I don't know her name. I love Dolls.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I did have one character, and I'm not sure if they were just trying to lighten the movie up a little bit. So they have
He's supposed
Ralph.
to be the boy at heart. I think.
And I think it is during that time where you have people like, John Candy. I mean, it reminded me of like they're trying to have this person that you love.
He's harmless.
He's harmless, but then there was a weird point where they tried to make him kind of
a jerk.
Yeah. And then they bring it back, and then they let the young girl just go with him. So it was kind of like...
Yeah, he acquires a child.
Oh, yeah. You can't really just... Even though her parents are dead, you can't just give that kid away to this man because he's nice.
Yeah. It's what I love that in movies where they're just like, no, she just lives with him now. And you're like, that's legally not going to hold up at all.
Yeah.
there will be questions about the parents. And I love films that end with that it's a cycle. Like
Yeah.
it ends with someone else's car breaking down in front of the dolls,
Yeah.
the
Like,
house.
here
and,
we go
yeah,
again.
And these people are like, oh, it broke
Yeah.
down. It's like, it's pretty perfect.
Yeah. But I was really into this one. I think that was fave.
Yeah, for me, yeah. When you said you didn't remember it, I was like, woo!
Yeah.
I got super excited. Next is The Pit from '81, which had you seen before?
No.
All right, great.
No, I have not.
Okay.
And it wins the Super Creepy Award.
Yes, creepiest
for sure.
kid on film.
Yeah. I mean, what good casting, though, right? Because
I guess.
I mean, think about how many children they had to interview and then be like, oh, yeah, man, you're the creepiest.
Yeah, he probably walked in the room and they were like, ugh, I want to jump in the pit. Yeah.
Has he done anything else?
I
or
don't
was that
believe
it?
so.
Ugh.
I mean, I think I looked it up, but I erased it from my memory. People that don't know, it's a movie about a boy that has a pit he visits that has trolls in it, and he has a talking teddy bear.
Yeah, and you kind of think it's all in his mind, but then it's just not.
It's so not.
It's real.
Yeah.
And then you're just left being like, oh, well, I thought this was just a creepy kid, but it's actually like there's this other stuff going on, but it's still like the creepiest kid.
Yeah.
And then there's like some totally inappropriate babysitter bath washing.
Oh, yes.
Where I was just like, this whole movie just makes me like very not, like I feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And it's not the monsters in the cave that are doing it. It's the people.
It's the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So that's The Pit from '81. And then a double feature we'll skip over because most people will have seen probably. But Night of the Creeps and The Gate are two films that I love to sneak in. I don't play favorites for 31 to 31. I love like discoveries and pushing boundaries. But man, I love Night of the Creeps.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies.
We've watched it a lot. I think my favorite is, Brad when he's the preppy zombie.
Yep. And he's just sitting on the stairs while she's talking.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, Tom Atkins.
And it's got all the things you need. It's got like mouth slugs, flamethrowers.
Yeah, aliens with cute butts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there.
It's good.
Tom Atkins is one of my favorite actors. And I think it was 31 and 31s ago where we just by random grouping watched The Fog, Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3. I think there was something else where it was almost a full week of Tom Atkins roles. Oh, Road Games maybe. And I was just like, man, he's so good in everything. And then of course The Gate. Anytime you play heavy metal music and opens a gateway to hell, I'm all in.
Me too.
Which brings us to NOSFERATUESDAYS. The first film was Pale Blood. I watched that by myself. This was once we were in the thick of things. I was like, I started just checking out a scene, and if I was like, she's not going to be into it, then I just watched it by myself. This is a Wings Hauser movie. There's vampires. It's not a lot happens, so it's more something that if you are a Wings Hauser completionist, then you'll probably want to watch it, but otherwise, vampire fans, maybe look elsewhere.
This is the thing. So I love a sexy vampire movie all year round, not just during the month of October.
Yes.
But I actually watched the least of those, and I think it's about the day of the week. It's because Mondays are really busy for me, and I think Tuesdays I just was out, and I didn't watch much of what you were doing. Unfortunately, it happened to be like my favorite style of movie, so I didn't see a lot of them, but the ones I did see,
I mean, it's also, we've kept NOSFERATUESDAYS or vampires in the mix for the past 4 years. So we've exhausted a lot of the greats. And so in trying to find new ones, we'll get to
and
it.
don't feel pressure to find new ones, because I feel like I love to revisit ones that I love.
I mean, Halloween week, we could put in the From Dusk Till Dawn, and that would play really well.
Or, I love Suck, too. That's
Suck's great. Lifeforce from 1985 is the next one. Tobe Hooper, Space Vampires. I love this movie. It's probably my second favorite Tobe Hooper film of all time. So I snuck it in there. Space Vampires, Lifeforce. Next was Vampires from 1974. Talk about something I've never seen before and can't ever unsee. This was supposed to be an erotic vampire film. And I would say it's a lot of people doing things with their mouths that is really gross.
Well, yeah, and it's described as this, like, lesbian vampire coming out movie. Really, it's just the story of these two women who are murdered and then become vampires. But it's pretty, there's a lot of weird kissing.
Yeah.
Um,
Just dragging your open mouth across other people's bodies. It's so weird.
It's the opposite of a sexy vampire movie. It's like so an unsexy vampire movie, and all the men. So I don't. Is it a British film, maybe, or something?
I think it's. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but it's very
weird. Once we started watching it, I was like, I don't
weird.
need to know.
It's too many like pasty white men that are with these beautiful women, and you're like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and anytime people's faces get close together, you'd think like, oh, they're gonna kiss, and then it's just like the weirdest. It's
You're
so
like,
uncomfortable.
Please stop kissing.
Yeah. We're just both furrowing our brows on the couch like, oh no. Like, the horror is not the horror part.
Yeah, another example.
It's the
horror
erotic.
Not being the horror.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
So followed that up with Vamp from 1986. I was excited that you hadn't seen this.
I hadn't seen it, and so Grace Jones is the queen vampire, and I love her. Mm-hmm. I love her music. I love her in this movie. Yeah. I think this is a really fun watch because, we are like children of the 90s where art house films were kind of our thing. And it reminds me of like a lot of the performance art stuff that was happening. But in this case, it's happening in this strip club. And I just thought it was really beautiful and beautifully done. And it, it's a good creepy vampire movie. There's parts that are creepy, and then there's parts that are almost like funny and like we're like a good cop, bad cop movie, and we're gonna, like they could have easily made a second one with the characters.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's just the story of two guys that then have another guy. I want to call them friends, but they're not really friends. They go into town to try to get a prostitute so they can get into a fraternity, essentially.
So it's like a mix of like 80s.
Yeah, it's 1986, but it's lit. It looks so good. It looks like 1992 or something. Yeah. And like you said, it's like it's an art house person making a movie about vampires. Yeah. It's not like horrific in any way, and there's a dance sequence, kind of a dance sequence that Grace Jones does that's like you'll never forget it. It's pretty amazing to see. But it is a comedy.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it starts out that way, and then it gets a little intense, and then it goes back to it. So, I mean, I think it's really fun. I was glad to have seen it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, everything's lit purple and green. It's like, they go in the sewer, it's purple and green. You're like, why is it this I don't know what's happening.
Maybe they only had 2 lights.
Yeah, I think so, but it looks great. It really works. And then we follow that up with a film that you picked called Family Blood on Netflix.
Yeah, I thought, I like a good family horror movie, and I think that whenever we're kind of forced to see mental health and problems and family dynamics as horror, I think it's really important because it creates good dialogue. And so I felt like they did a really good job with this one. It's about a mother who is struggling with addiction, and she in her AA meetings comes across this vampire. Mm-hmm. And so she was already destroying her family, but then she's really destroying her family, and I think it was just a good kind of social commentary on that kind of thing. I think they did a really great job with it.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I was kind of in and out on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But sometimes that happens with films where you're just sort of like, I'm paying attention, or you're like, I have a great idea for something, so I think I was in and out of emails. But I thought it looked good. The performances were interesting. Yeah, that's about all I have for that. But that's on Netflix if people want to check it out, Family Blood. Next is Near Dark from 1987, directed by Catherine Bigelow from Point Break and Hurt Locker fame. You had seen this or hadn't seen Near Dark?
When you said it, I thought that I had not. But then once we were watching it, the characters were all familiar to me, so I definitely think that I've seen it, but I really enjoyed watching it this time, and in this time and place especially, because I feel like there was all this, so, I mean, I guess it's the first, like, Western vampire movie
It
I've
feels like
seen,
it.
and I don't mean
I mean,
Western like Old West.
Right, yeah, because there are
I mean
those.
like rural
Mm-hmm.
cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really associate vampires and cowboy hats, really. I
Right.
mean, you don't see it much together. And so this was the first one where there's like country music playing, but then also they have these, this group of vampires that live in vans
Yeah.
and they're traveling around, and our world is very similar to that right now with all of these people where if you just walk down our streets you'll see tons of this almost exact same vehicles with them painted, or
Yeah.
so it kind of felt like, oh, this is really about the here and now, and this group of people who have banded together and are traveling around, and they're struggling for sure. I thought it was an interesting one. The thing I couldn't really relate to, so the vampire, I don't know, remember their names. So the vampire woman and the
Yes.
and the man that she turns to a vampire.
Yeah.
Their love so quickly
Yeah.
and connection to each other just seemed really like, all you did was like make out in a truck. Like, how are you and you don't even really seem to like each other.
Right.
But then they're like willing to do anything to survive. And so that was kind of like, I think you need to have
Yeah.
have some kind of feelings there before all of this stuff happens. But I did like, I liked watching it, and I thought it was fun. And I also always like a turned kid.
Yeah, Josh Miller is great in
vampire. He was a great.
He's great.
Great
He's
character.
great in Teen Witch.
Yeah.
He and his partner wrote Final Girls, which is an awesome film. Yeah, I love the cast in this, except for the male lead, I guess. I just don't find that his story interesting at all, even though it's like supposed to be the main story. Like, I'm more into Lance Henriksen as like the older one, and then I like those dynamics a lot more.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe that's the thing. I mean, he was the real character that was the cowboy character, and maybe he just didn't fit into our vampire movie.
Yeah, it could be. Bill Paxton's
so
great
we
in
were
it
both
too.
like,
Yeah.
he could stay or go. Don't care.
Yeah, but I do highly recommend it.
Yeah,
it is
for sure.
hard to get, so I will say that. Which takes us to Witchy Wednesdays.
Oh, my fave. I love a witchy movie.
All right. Started off with Witchhammer, which I watched by myself, so you didn't have to see it. It's from 1970. It's a black and white Czechoslovakian drama. It was something I hadn't seen. Last year, Haxan was a film I hadn't seen, so I wanted to start off with something black and white, because I knew I'd be going wild after that. So next is Witchboard from 1986.
Well, and I loved Witchboard, but I think that Witchboard is actually a possession movie.
It's not about a witch.
It is not about a witch, but I enjoyed it a lot. So, Tawny Kitaen?
Yeah.
Is that her name? Is great in this movie. Her, she's possessed by this man ghost. Mm-hmm. So her dressed up in a suit is like the best thing I've ever seen.
It's pretty great. It's pretty good.
So I think it's good. And I think that they do a really good job also of showing what it's like to be in a relationship with a very terrible boyfriend.
Yes,
because
it's
her
true.
boyfriend is awful.
Awful.
And it never gets better. And I think they did a good job of showing what it's like. Yeah. And you just want her to get out of it, in every aspect of it. But then there's also this other thing going on, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. And there's it's about, there's a Ouija board.
Yeah.
And it's apparently connected to some kind of evil spirit. And then also maybe a not evil spirit as well. It's interesting. There's a lot of samples from, there's a band I listen to called God Module that sampled the whole Ouija sequence for their song Ouija board. Or I think it's just called Ouija. But it's always interesting when you've heard a song so many times.
Yeah.
And then the sample starts and you're like, I know this!
Yeah.
I know what this is!
Yeah. You're like, I've played this at many clubs.
Yeah. Next, we have Witchtrap from 1989, which is the same director and some of the same cast, but everyone says not a sequel. Witchtrap is not a sequel to Witchboard. And one of the reasons you know that is, I think, the script for Witchtrap is hilarious. The things people say to each other in this is so funny, and I just think it has to be intentionally wild, because I think he wrote Witchboard as well. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he did. And this movie, it's got a lot that people might not enjoy, like waiting for the witch stuff to happen, but the things coming out of the cast's face. This is a movie I would show like on Fridays to people in high school.
But yeah, and it's also not really a witch movie. I mean, it's more of a possession movie, right? So there's like the psychic medium,
Yes.
and it's another like man from history. Like, this is clearly the dynamic of what the story this person wants to tell.
Yeah, I think they say warlock, which is kind of a male witch.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that is. So I guess it is a witch movie, but I loved it. I love how sweaty the medium gets every
So sweaty.
time, and that no one does anything.
Ever.
Like, they're always like, "Where are you?" And you look exhausted as she's like struggling with
Yes.
this like entity.
It's so funny.
It's really good.
Anytime something bad happens, she starts like convulsing
Yeah.
and shaking, always by herself.
Always by herself,
And then
and
they
nobody
see her.
ever does anything. And then they see her and they're like, "Oh, you look really bad." And we're like looking for these ghosts,
Yeah.
and none of us are like, "Oh, hey, maybe something's going on here."
Oh, it's so good. There's some good deaths in there as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Then Dead Time Stories
Oh,
from 1987. Scott Valentine's in this. He's best known for Family Ties, but he's wonderful in a film called My Demon Lover, so shout out to that film. This is sort of a kind of an anthology,
Yeah.
but I chose it for the witch sequence, which is the beginning.
Yep.
That segment.
One of the stories, one of the fairy tales he's telling. So
Right.
he's supposed to be like this uncle babysitter telling stories to
Just a
a child
terrible
who
man.
won't sleep, and he's equal parts angry
Yes.
and then kind of fun, but he's also maybe drinking. So as stories go on, he's like less patient with
Yeah.
the child.
Which, as a parent, I was kind of
Yeah.
like, all right.
Yeah. You're
I mean,
like,
that kinda
this
works.
is a terrible example of a babysitter.
Yes.
So, but I did like, because we are so used to the time of storytelling and
Yeah.
these short stories. We had shows like Tales from the Crypt and Hitchhiker and all these things that were
Yeah.
these very short horror stories. And so I liked that piece of it. It's
Yes.
like fairy tales for adults.
Yeah.
I was into it.
Yeah, I enjoy that. So, Dead Time Stories, you can find that on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's on Blu-ray yet. It also had one of those covers of like a kind of a demon hand holding the book that I remember from my dad's video store. Next, we watched The Craft Legacy. This is from 2020. It just came out, I think, October 28th. Could be wrong. Yeah, what did you think of The Craft Legacy?
Well, there were things I liked about it, and there were things I didn't like about it. So I, first off, loved The Craft. That was
Sure.
the original Craft. That was a movie that was part of my experience and existence, and I was very into it. I like things about this movie that I do feel like I didn't like about the original Craft. So I love that the women that are in this coven stay connected through anything, and they come out triumphant over a bully. Like, I love that narrative being part of our story now, because that's not what happened in the original
Right.
Craft. They kind of backstab each other, and then nothing happens and nobody wins.
Yeah, no one really comes together.
Nobody comes together. So I liked this because I felt like it was something that people need to hear now, is that if you have your people and you stick together, you can beat evil. And so I felt like I loved that part of it. The evil that they're beating,
Oh,
David
boy.
Duchovny,
Yeah.
is like, he's supposed to, I mean, I don't know, we're going to ruin it for people if they haven't seen it, if we're like...
Okay, so spoiler alert for this movie, because it is 2020, and we are going to talk about it, because I'm angry. Just keep skipping ahead, and if you keep hearing me say Sleepy Duchovny, then we're still talking about it. Okay, now you can feel
Yeah.
free to talk how you
Okay,
want.
so the stepdad is the Warlock.
Yeah.
And that is who they are fighting against. And
Yeah.
he has this troop of men warlocks. And it reminded me of, like, remember the time where there was, like, the men are from Mars, women are from Venus,
Sure.
where you really have, her mother is in an abusive relationship with a man who hates women.
Absolutely.
And so they need to stand up against him
Mm-hmm.
because he sucks.
Mhm.
Does that make him a scary, evil warlock? No.
Not at all.
He's so boring.
He's so sleepy and puffy.
Is he somebody terrible that you don't want to be part of your family or your life? Absolutely.
Sure.
Because he's one of those people that pretends like he's doing good, and really now they use terms like gaslighting, like he's gaslighting, pretending that he is this great person that's lifting everyone up, but really he's just controlling them and being a total terrible person.
I mean, it's just he just isn't doing anything. Like there's a scene at a dinner table where he's supposed to be like staring at her, and it's like he could be asleep in the scene. Like it's just not menacing. It's not charismatic. It's not entertaining. I'm guessing it's how the film got financed, is having a star attached to it. But holy smokes, does it not work? It is by and large laughable. I mean. And what a terrible arc for the mom. Like, she has no arc. Like, the whole third act of the film is, like, laughable. Which is so unfortunate because the performances of especially the Coven, they're wonderful actors. There's a male lead. I can't think of his name right now. But his arc was almost tear-inducing. And he delivers a monologue that's so heartfelt. Like, I had, like, goosebumps because I'm like, this guy, there's, like, layers to what he's portraying. He's this jock. He's maybe something else. It's
that's the thing that I was going to say. I love, I would recommend this movie to watch because I think it's doing a good job of showing, there are trans characters, there's bisexual characters, and it is showing that they are these people in our world, and we love them, and we need to love them, and they're just part of the story, as they should be. Yeah. They shouldn't be, a character. Sometimes in horror movies, things get a little, especially like the 80s, old ones, where I felt like this was a good portrayal of people that love each other, and that's how it should be, where they're friends. It's a totally different group of witches than like the first one, and I love it. I think I loved that piece of it,
and that they're tackling that exist without people saying like, hey look, it's the gay person.
They're tackling issues in this silly witch movie, and so I liked that because I think they did a good job with being like, these are our people, here we are, love us.
I totally agree. And I feel like when this was announced, there's always a big backlash of people, which I don't understand, because people buy the box set of Halloween or Friday the 13th, just Blu-ray box just came out. Would you get mad every time the new, Freddy movie comes out or Jason movie? It's like, no, you're just happy to have more stuff. Yeah. And it's like, this doesn't take away from the original craft if you loved it. Mm-mm. And if, I just think it's worth watching. I think a lot of people tried to make something really special despite the terrible ending. And David Duchovny, who wasn't trying. He could not have been trying. And that's all I have to say about that. And after watching such a lazy Warlock performance, I had to put on Warlock from 1989, starring Julian Sands as a, I think, far more charismatic Warlock.
Well, he's definitely got a better ponytail.
He's got a better ponytail. He speaks more eloquently, and he's like sly. He's like up to something. David Duchovny's like barely even alive in that other movie that I won't even talk about anymore. The Craft Legacy. But Warlock, yeah. Any thoughts, or should we just keep on rolling?
No, I was into the ponytail. That's about it.
Warlock 2 is my favorite, so we'll get to that one. Okay. Creatures Day. Yes, creature features. Kicked this off was actually, I think, the very beginning of October with FREAKMAKER from 1974 and FUNHOUSE from 1981. FREAKMAKER, the premise is there's a man who's tired of waiting for evolution, so he starts crossbreeding plants and people. This film, I chose it because it involves a lot of people that performed as freaks at the time, so inside shows and things. And it's an interesting film. I like it. I don't think you really enjoyed FREAKMAKER very much.
I didn't really.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Donald Pleasance is in this movie as well. It does take a long time to get to the monsters that you would see, the freaks that he makes, but they are different. It's interesting. And then Funhouse, of course, my favorite Tobe Hooper film. I know he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I love Funhouse, and I always sneak it in somewhere in 31 and 31. Kids go to a funhouse, they want to stay the night, they see some things they shouldn't see, and then they gotta survive.
Yeah. I mean, funhouses are like where it's kind of like a carnival theme.
It's in a carnival.
It's always fun because they're creepy no matter what.
Yeah.
They're creepy in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Even when nothing's happening, you're always like, but somebody could get murdered here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Funhouse is fun. I think we watch it every year. I always like it.
Every year. I love the Barker. I love, just to the way he talks and the way he lurks around. It's really fantastic. The creature, maybe not my favorite thing in the film. I just love the setting. I love how it's shot. There's an aerial shot in the beginning, kind of coming down into the like circusy funhouse area, and it just like that sets October for me. So Funhouse. Next, Project Metal Beast from 1995.
Yeah, this is some serious werewolf action happening.
That's right.
It was a little
seen.
I had never seen it, and it was a little too like sci-fi werewolf movie for me.
Yeah.
I like a natural moon werewolf.
Sure, natural moon werewolves. Yep.
So it was like too much, and it's very like male takeover. Like I don't know. It was almost like Terminator-y.
Well, yes. So
it's
the premise of the film, for people that haven't seen Project Metal Beast, all of you, is there's a guy who's been killed because he was a werewolf. And then, much like in the autopsy of Jane Doe, now that I just spoiled that for you, they're doing stuff to him to maybe make him like a super soldier, if they could bring him back to life. So they're trying to make the army's trying to make a person who's like bulletproof or something. And in doing so, they remove the silver from the body, hence creating or bringing back, I don't know if this is how werewolves work, but he comes back to life, and he's now like bulletproof werewolf. He's like Project Metal Beast. And so he sets off on a rampage. Because it's 1995, it's pretty dimly lit, but shredding people and ripping them apart.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you how it ends because you really got to see. But it's a rocket launcher. Anyway, that takes us to Boneyard from 1991. This film I chased down because it has Phyllis Diller in it. It's really go in knowing it's low budget. But it's interesting. The acting is very strange. And when it gets to the demonic poodle mutant creature... Oh, I have the DVD somewhere around here, and I was going to show you... okay. And you can see this image on my Instagram. This happens in the film. It's... and also Phyllis Diller turns into this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't see the... I didn't see this one, but... That is a very angry-looking poodle.
Yeah. So it takes a while to get there, and then once it gets there, if that's your kind of thing, then you can check out The Boneyard. That is put out by Code Red on Blu-ray. And then Wild Beasts. This is the end of CREATHURDAY from 1984. Basically, it's there's PCP in the water, folks, and it gets into a zoo. Does that sound like fun?
Yeah, it's interesting to watch a movie like this now because they, if somebody were to remake it, they probably wouldn't use real animals.
I don't think so.
But these are real animals.
They sure are. Just
kind of like tromping through the city in an airport. They're in the actual zoo.
Yes.
It's wild.
It's Wild Beasts lives up to its name. It's the soundtrack, first of all, amazing, as it is Italian film. There's a sequence with a tiger in a subway.
Yeah.
And there's some notes here that it was shot between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. in an actual subway tunnel.
Yeah.
They released a tiger. The tiger got loose in the subway from where it was supposed to be contained and hid in a bathroom before deciding to go on top of one of the trains. Station employees were not allowed to enter the station until they finally caught the tiger. And that pretty much feels real through this whole movie.
Yeah.
Also, they painted all the rats black because they could only get white ones. Again, they painted the rats black. So, PETA people might not enjoy Wild Beasts, but there is also some stuff you'll see in this film involving, like, it was a cheetah, I think, chasing a car down a street.
Yeah.
That's, like, straight up a real cheetah in a street.
Yeah.
And, like, it's just wild. It's stuff you'll never see. Elephants at an airport. I mean, it's really crazy.
Yeah, it was fun. And, I mean, just to have the PCP in the water is an interesting twist.
Yeah, they're like, why are these animals going crazy?
Yeah.
And then guys like, well, there's PCP in the water.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that'll do it. Except for, would it really do it? Like, if there was really PCP in water, would that make animals violently tear apart humans?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But
I don't think so. Wouldn't they just
part.
be like chill and like...
I don't think that's how PCP works at all. I've never done PCP, but I'm pretty sure
Clearly I don't
insane.
know what PCP does to
I think
you.
you're thinking of like bong rips. Like if a cheetah did a bong rip, it would just be strutting around.
I'm thinking more like Molly.
Okay, sure. I think PCP is like the insane agitated version of that.
Okay,
maybe.
yeah. I had my drugs wrong.
Yeah. I could be wrong. So PCP doers, that's what they call themselves.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah. Would animals really rip humans apart if they did all the PCP?
Yeah. Or here's the crazy part. In the third act, if you remember, that same water gets into a kindergarten school.
Yeah. And then the kids get real crazy. Like, if kids weren't already creepy, kids on PCP, super creepy.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
And maybe that kid in the pit was on PCP.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
I think him or the tape.
He was still high from being on Wild Beasts.
For sure. Which takes us to WTF-RIDAYs. Started off with Saint Bernard from 2013. This was directed by Gabriel Bartalos, a special effects guy who's worked on everything from Friday the 13th Part 6, to Leprechaun 4 in Space, to Crawl Space, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Gremlins 2, and From Beyond. And boy, does it feel like it was made by a special effects guy.
Yeah, it sure does. And I mean, so, it is WTF-RIDAYs.
Yes.
You got weird on here, and that's cool. I mean, I'll watch anything weird. But that one, I think him being a special effects artist was a downfall a little bit, because it was like...
narratively,
too much.
Yes.
It was definitely strange. There was a lot of strange things that happened, which I can get into. But then it was just like too many special effects. But there's also really cool things. I thought the hair people were really cool.
The premise of the film is a man finds a dog's head and keeps it in a sack.
Yeah.
And goes to talk to... oh gosh, what's the... Warwick Davis, who's, I think, on top of some wood blocks. That's literally all I know about the plot. But there are some people made out of hair that appear. The guy turns into a worm for a brief period of time. There's a lot of glass crunching.
Yeah, we mostly just kept looking at each other and being like, what?
Yeah, it's a wild movie. He wears a suit covered in money. None of this is a spoiler because you won't be able to figure it out either.
No. And I mean, I think, I don't know. There's probably something being said there. I mean, I think he's going crazy, right? And so he's picturing all of this.
Sure.
But he's carrying the dog's head around as protection. It's supposed to be his, like...
and people want to steal it.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But there is some horror elements that happen in this movie. It's not a horror film.
No.
But there is some horror stuff that happens that when it happens, you're like, whoa. Like, he really goes there. If there's gore in the film, it is pulpy, gross gore. Mm-hmm. So, even though it's not a horror film, if people are interested, check out St. Bernard. It's weird. It's definitely weird.
Yeah.
Nobody could watch
Get
it
weird,
and say,
everybody.
this isn't weird.
Yeah.
Next we saw Pieces. This is from 1982. That was the boy putting together the puzzle. I have the puzzle of it. And then later on they're at the college. Do you remember this one?
Not at all.
Okay. There's a lawn care dude, and he's like super creepy, and he has like kind of a beard. There's like a pool. Lady getting out of the pool, and she gets attacked by a dude. No recall. Wow. Well, here, check it out. See if that sparks it. There's a beautiful Blu-ray that came out, I think, by Grindhouse. It's a double disc, comes with the soundtrack. Soundtrack is fantastic. Directed by Juan, who also did Slugs, Juan Simone. This is a movie that my dad's video
where they're
store
trying
had.
to find the killer.
Yeah.
And he's killing everybody with a chainsaw.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. There's a crazy pool of blood scene.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so this film, I didn't know about Italian cinema. I didn't know about Spanish cinema. I was just picking films off a shelf as a kid in a video store. And there's something so weird about Pieces because it's supposed to take place in America, but is so clearly not America.
Yeah.
And the things that happen in this film are very odd and how they're connected. And then there's sort of this like slasher sort of through line. And then the gore is like just crazy. So
a lot of blood.
Yeah, a lot of blood, a lot of super red blood. So that's
And
pieces.
don't you have a puzzle?
Yeah,
like a
the
real
puzzle's
life
right there.
puzzle?
Yeah.
If people want to get it, maybe you could tell me.
Yeah, you can get the puzzle. I got it from Weird War, so that's WYRD space WAR. They're on Instagram, and they have a website. They carry the horror puzzle collection. So I got the puzzle that the kid's putting together in pieces. Because this film and Mad Men were two that I watched all the time in my dad's video store. Because I just couldn't figure out what was happening. Because they're not from the States. It just has this other feel. And then the soundtrack is pretty amazing. Also, there's a roller skating sequence with a plate of glass that is pretty fantastic in the film. Which brings us to Devil's Honey, 1986. We didn't watch all of Devil's Honey.
I couldn't do it.
I put it on because this film opens with the scene with saxophone that it's really known for, and I was like, this is gonna get her. Like Sarah liked this, and it was so sleazy and I guess gross that you were just like, I'm not into this.
So I think there's something about, you have to think about the time and place that we're watching this movie.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. So we're in October. Our world is really ugly right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't even stand the very first scene is like the perfect example of this man full on taking advantage of this woman in a very forceful way.
Yeah.
And they are in a relationship together.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter.
No, right.
And it was so disgusting to me. I mean, she's saying no and he's doing it anyways. And I was like, F this movie. Like, no, absolutely not. Because I feel like at the time I was watching it, I was like, every young girl has to stand up and, you know, we don't have to take this, and all of us, like, there can't be these abusive people. So I was watching it and I was just like, I can't handle it right now. I don't even want to watch this movie. And so we didn't watch it.
Yeah, we turned it off and put on the Mortuary collection, which you can find on Shudder, partially filmed in Astoria. Starring Clancy Brown, one of my favorite actors. It's an anthology. It just came out. Beautifully shot. Some really fun stories. I think you get 5 stories instead of 3, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, I liked it. Because we're Oregon natives, we always like when movies are filmed there. Like, I'll pretty much see anything that's filmed in, Portland or Astoria in particular with this one. But so I loved that piece of it because you automatically feel connected to it.
Yes.
So I was drawn in immediately, and there's all these very historical places that we have been to and stories that we know. And so I was into it. I would recommend people watch this.
Yes. A great palate cleanser, too, after you start something where you're like, this is too sleazy.
Yeah.
I need something with some levity to it. There's some nice humor moments.
Way to save the day, man. You really brought me back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Because next is Society from 1989, directed by Brian Yuzna. When you said you hadn't seen Society, I was like so excited.
So I heard you talking about Society with one of your guests on
even
another
Blu-ray box
episode. I can't believe I haven't seen this movie. It's not everyone would be able to watch it.
That's true.
I don't even know how to describe. Can you describe the movie?
Yes. So, a boy, I think he moves to a town, and there's a high society there. There's definitely some things Brian Yuzna is saying in this film. And they're just up to some things that are behind the scenes weird. And so then he's, starts to... It's very 80s. People will, I think, really enjoy the sort of 80s sort of high school kid situations. But then the society does some things that are, not un-orgy-like.
It's definitely a weird rich person orgy.
Yes.
I don't know how to describe what's happening with their bodies.
So it's called The Shunting. And if you don't want to know more about this, just skip ahead, because if you want to discover it on your own. But pretty much any image you'll find kind of spoils it.
Mm-hmm.
So they start to like mutate together. So people's bodies will morph together. It's all fleshy and rubbery and
Mm-hmm.
sweaty and goopy. Yeah, and then the movie, you have someone who has a head where their ass should be.
Mm-hmm.
You have just people completely melting together into a giant room full of just puddle of flesh.
And all just like moaning and groaning the whole time. Like even when you can't really tell what's going on, the sounds of it and the goopiness and they do a really great job. I would not want to be an actor or an actress on that set.
Yeah, no.
It seems totally disgusting.
Yeah.
And we watched some of the...
So the effects were done by Screaming Mad George, and you were like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so we watched some of the bonus features, which involves a current like interview with Screaming Mad George, and you were like, I think I love him.
Yeah. Yes. I do.
Yeah. Screaming Mad George is great.
I stand by that.
And crazy. And his effects are definitely like that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't have any nightmares that night, because when I showed you The Thing, you had some terrible dreams.
Oh, yeah. So sometimes if my brain has not seen something or just doesn't get it, then I'll like dream about it at night. So I've had some, I didn't have any too weird of dreams this month, but sometimes, like after I watched The Thing, I had this crazy dream with my toe eating my face.
Yeah.
And it was like, alien and
all the
goopy, like it's all stuff that to me it just means that somebody did a really good job creating this special effect that's believable and horrific for me. This is not that, but I like it. I also feel like it's a good social commentary to watch right now about this society.
Yes.
That is just getting away with everything.
And rich people just feel like if you're not rich, then you're trash and you don't matter.
Yeah.
And
then really they are up to something, but it's just not what you think it is.
Yeah, it's way worse.
Way worse.
Yeah. So that is Society, 1989. Be sure and check that out. Arrow put out a beautiful Blu-ray of that. Next is Night of the Comet, which you didn't watch. It's from 1984. We will watch it. Catherine Ann Stewart's amazing in it. Basically, a comet goes over Earth and everyone's dead except for a couple people and then maybe some things that should be dead. It's very fun. Next is Wishmaster from 1997. Because for WTF, I was getting too wild, and so then I started to be like, after Society, have you seen this? And you're like, no. And I was like, oh, but gotta watch Wishmaster, because it definitely has some WTF effects in there, for sure.
Yeah, I also think it should maybe just be called Trickmaster, because people aren't actually making wishes. He's just like tricking them into something so he can get power. Well, but like nobody ever gets anything cool.
No, he just twists their wish every single time.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, yep. The djinn in this movie essentially is released from a lamp, and then he tries to get people to make wishes. So that he can kill them, essentially, is like kind of what the thing. And then I think he gets their soul.
He becomes more powerful.
Right. But the thing I didn't remember about the first Wishmaster film, which I have all four, is that Reggie Bannister and the tall man from Phantasm are in this film. Robert Englund, a.k.a. Freddy, is in this film. Kane Hodder is in this film. It's like they put every horror person they could. Tony Todd.
Well, and you have to think about it. They have to all be buddies, right? I mean, they've
sure.
done all these movies together, so it's like, oh, if you're making this movie, or, it's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Because they're in it for,
just a scene.
A few minutes, which, of course, takes more like a day. But, it was fun. It was a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, it's fun. And then, of course, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, from 1982. We love this movie. We watch it every year. Tom Atkins, as I said, is great in it. It also is the commercial that I started off your Halloween mix with.
Yeah, I love it. I always love this movie. For some reason, we had it when I was a kid, like a recording of it, and so I've seen it probably more than other movies, and I always into it.
Yeah, it's great. And that closed out WTF-RIDAYS, which takes us to our last day, SLasherday. The first one I watched was The Wind from 1986. I watched this without you. Meg Foster's in it. She's great. Again, Wings Hauser. So if you're a Wings Hauser completionist and you love his crazy antics, then watch this movie. But otherwise, doesn't have a lot to offer. I did post a picture of it on the Instagrams, and Dennis from Weird War said that's the cover from Friday 5, I think. It was like a one sheet from like Turkey, and it is. It's the same image of the Wind cover, only they painted a Jason mask on the.
I know, you showed me that, and I think that happens sometimes,
Yeah.
even just in like translating, especially different films and different movies
Yeah,
we've seen.
they just lifted an image
Yeah.
and painted on it. It's pretty funny. But The Wind, not a lot to offer. It's atmospheric. It takes place in a castle. I don't know. Moving along to something far more interesting. We're at Murder Rock, a.k.a. Dancing Death from 1984. Lucio Fulci, what'd you think?
I thought it was fun. Just the opening sequence.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I love a leotard.
Mm-hmm.
I love a lot of like sweaty synchronized dancing.
Yes, me too.
You know you're in for something good when it starts out that way. And it doesn't disappoint.
No.
It has a lot of that throughout.
Yes.
It continues. This is another thing, you know, we talked about the very first show, like a needle into a body.
Oh, yeah, in Possessor.
Yeah, gets me.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel like I am being violated.
Sure.
And
not
so
great. You don't like needles.
I don't like needles. I mean, I'm fine if I need to go get a shot or something like that. I just don't look. It's fine. But when it's being used as a torturous device, it really gets me. Yeah. I get sweaty. My heart beats fast.
It's all the crunching sound that you hear all the time.
I can't. So this one has that, and it's really good. I mean, it's not that I will watch movies that do that, because I feel something when I watch it, you know, and so it's like I'm into it. So I thought it was great. Yeah,
the killer stalks the people with a long like hat
pin.
And one of the great shots, you're basically almost you're following right over the top of him. No, you're actually following the hand with the needle, which, if you know, the killer's hands in all of Fulci's films are Fulci's hands. So that's interesting. And then this lady like taking off running. It's interesting. The soundtrack also really great. So I highly recommend Murder Rock. Then we had a little college time because we had The Initiation from 1984 and Pledge Night from 1990. The Initiation is about 3 friends trying to get into a sorority who says you've got to go to the mall and steal the security guard's outfit. And so they're like, all right. So they do that, and then somebody escapes from an insane asylum and is also in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
It has some interesting kills, and it's shot well.
I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of movies that have, like, if you're in the mall, you can do anything you want. You know, we've seen it in a lot of horror movies and zombie movies. And so this has that, where it's like, I'm going to put on my favorite outfit and roller skates, you know, where it's like there's some fun things happening with it. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. The mall is really strange because it seems more like an office building.
It was, yeah.
But yeah.
It was a business center, I think, is where they shot it.
Yeah.
So.
But it's a good slasher.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff that happens.
Yeah, cool deaths.
And the twist is interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming, even though I'd seen the film 30 years ago or something.
Yeah, I didn't.
I was like,
no.
It's not who I thought it was?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Pledge Night, which is a film that you told me I needed to track down. I didn't know if it was Heather Wixon or somebody on Twitter that was saying, like, you got to get Pledge Night.
Yeah.
Anthrax is the soundtrack for the film. That's interesting. It's like 2 movies. It's like you're watching, what was the big college? Animal House.
Yeah.
And then it's also a slasher movie.
Yeah.
When Acid Sid starts showing up towards the end of the movie. But there's a lot I don't understand exactly.
Sure.
But it's really interesting. It was fun to pair those 2 together.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah. And then House on Sorority Row from 1982. This is easily like I don't know, Murder Rock's pretty solid too, but it's really well put together film. Basically, you have a sorority at a house. There's a pool. That's what you'll know most about the film. And the headmistress?
Yeah.
Mistress? I'm not sure. is maybe murdered or not, and then people start knocking off the sorority girls. It's not as trashy as it sounds. I didn't watch this for a long time because I thought it was. I thought it was just like a skin flick. But this is actually a really, really well put together thing.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I mean, I like that the pool becomes like the place of, focus, and you're like, oh no, like don't go in the dead lady pool.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, same. And then we got weird with Silent Rage from 1982. This is a Chuck Norris movie.
Yeah.
Where a serial killer becomes invincible. Not like Project Metal Beast, though. And it's a Chuck Norris movie.
Well, yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm a Chuck Norris fan. Or,
Same.
I mean, he
was around.
He was around. I know who he is. I've seen some of the movies probably along the way somewhere, but
growing up in the video store, he's one of those people that dads really liked Chuck Norris, and they'd be like, yeah, watch this POW movie or whatever. And so I'd watch it and I'd be like, but is this the most interesting? He looks just like he would be great at building a deck. That's the look of Chuck Norris to me.
I would love for him to come re-roof our house.
Yeah, like that's Chuck Norris. You're not like, we should call that guy to save everybody. No, like Lou Ferrigno.
And I don't think he doesn't seem like attractive.
No.
Or like tough. I mean, I know he kicks a lot of people.
His kicks.
Yeah. But that's not real.
Yeah, I didn't even really get charisma. Like he didn't seem charismatic to me.
But I thought the movie was really funny because the whole time he's not doing any of that.
Right.
Until all of a sudden he's got to kick fight the
never-ending, unstoppable killer, who is a killer. Like, this is a Chuck Norris movie that is basically a slasher.
Yeah, he's a killer who can't die. They can't kill him. And so he's just going to keep on killing. They're going to keep on trying to kill him, but he's just never going to die.
Nope.
So then...
If you haven't seen Silent Rage from 82, we're about to tell you the ending.
So the ending is just that he kicks this unbeatable person that can't die into a really big hole.
Yeah. A deep hole.
A deep hole.
And then they're like, that's that.
And that's it.
No, he just lives in the earth
He just lives
now.
And I mean, if he can do anything, he can get out of there.
Probably. I mean, it's a deep hole.
It is a very deep hole.
I like to imagine that it links to the pit and that he lives with the trolls.
Yeah.
And he's just down there and they keep biting him and he's just swatting him away forever.
Yeah.
Because he probably doesn't age either. They didn't address that, but they should have made a Silent Rage 2 now where he just comes out of the hole and has to fight like a... Is Chuck Norris still with us?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he is alive or dead.
I feel like that's something that everyone should know. We should have billboards that tell us if Chuck Norris is still around.
Probably everyone knows, but I don't know. I did have a big problem with this movie, and that is that he is in this romantic relationship with a girl.
Gosh, yeah.
And they don't ever tell you how old she is, but like her father is murdered. So she's clearly like not 18. And he tries to ask her, and then he's like, oh, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
So when you talk about him being this like dad role a lot of the times, and so then that part of it, I was just like, ew.
Yeah.
And then he starts sleeping with this girl.
He sure does. No shirt on this Chuck Norris for a while.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe she was supposed to be older. I'm not sure, but they don't let you know. They're kind of like, we're addressing this by not addressing this.
Which is a very 82 thing.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah,
gross. I don't approve, just so you know. I don't approve.
Yeah, this was, I mean, they had that whole Michael Caine movie where he went to Blame It on Rio or whatever, which is highly problematic.
Yeah.
And that was just like a thing in the 80s where like, old guys just sleeping with young girls.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your friend's daughter. And you're just like, what?
Yeah. So I was just, gross.
Yeah. Sure, I get that. Maybe that's your own private silent rage.
Yes. That is my silent rage, except for I'm not so silent.
Yeah, that's true. Very vocal. And then, of course, we usually end Halloween with Trick or Treat, the horror anthology, which isn't a slasher, but it is an epic horror anthology.
Yeah, it's a good one, everyone. If you haven't seen it, you should see it.
For sure. Did you have any favorites? Any new discoveries this 31 and 31 that you're like, I'm glad that came across here? Yeah,
well, I mean, I think Vamp...
Yes.
Was one I couldn't believe that I had not seen it just because I love Grace Jones
Especially
so much.
the cover. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Grace Jones in like white face with this red wig. It's very stark. It's quite an image.
I think that was my new found
Awesome
love. And then Dolls I had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, Dolls is great. I don't own Dolls, but I want to now. I can't imagine there's probably some great bonus features on there.
Yeah,
I love the feel of that film. Yeah, I think
what about you?
I think Mausoleum. I think that was a big one that I really enjoyed. Felt it was really well put together. I did like FREAKMAKER. Showing you Near Dark was probably one of my favorite experiences because halfway through you realized you'd seen it, but for the first part I was like, all right, she's watching this movie. She's never, but yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was a challenge. It was a real challenge to shuffle things around because I did program it and then realized really quickly like, oh, there's too many I had some really crazy low grade stuff, but I realized that wasn't going to be fun for you. So then sort of trying to rebuild the month was quite an interesting task, and I think we came out on top.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time to put this together and have me watch it. It was fun.
Yes.
I'll do it again next year.
Awesome. Great. If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can hit us up on the website vh-us.com. Feel free to share that. Any of your discoveries or experiences. Hopefully maybe one of these 41 films we've just discussed will creep into your 31 and 31, or maybe some shouldn't. So there's that as well. Thank you, Sarah Marshall, for joining me and for watching these films. And again, your podcast is Masonian Marshall, A Meaningful Marketplace. Your book, Preservation Pantry, is sold out but available on Kindle. Is that what you say? Or electronic bookstores?
Kindle.
All right. Head over to Marshall's Hot Sauce. You can see all the sauces and canning goodies available there. Plus, use the promo code VHS Podcast at checkout for 20% off. And find Sarah Marshall on Instagram and Twitter as Spicy Marshall. And then once again, she's doing live spicy demos every Thursday at 2 p.m. As always, I'm Derek Marshall, and this has been VHS.